What's up everyone, it's Goose. Today we're going to go over some IRs that are not V30s and not mic'd by a SM57. So for context, I have been kind of searching for IRs that are kind of their own flavor, and I've been kind of tired of just having a Mesa with V30s and SM57s. I mean, it sounds good, don't get me wrong. I think that combination sounds really good, but it's getting kind of basic to me. I was kind of inspired by a buddy of mine who is using a Matchless 212 for high gain tones, and it was very strange. And I was like, you know, I haven't really explored the 212 sort of vintage style amps and cabinets for high gain tones, and I was like, maybe I'll try those. So I'm going to check out 3 IRs today from 2 packs that you can get from York Audio. One of them is a Vox 212 with Alnico Blues in them, and another one is a Matchless with both an H30 and an M25. And you are stealing the show. You're so cute. So we're not really going to do any comparisons today, at least not with the same riffs or anything, but I just wanted to see if these cabinets could do high gain. But first, let's kind of remind ourselves of what a Mesa with V30s and SM57 sounds like. For the record, I am using a maximum model on the GT1000, which is kind of like a modded Marshall with a mid boost, which tube screamer kind of overdrive in front. And so this is a pretty common setup, I would say. This is the Ownhammer Essentials rectifier, which has V30s in them, and these are the UK voiced one, I believe. And so yeah, let's see how these sound. That's kind of the V30 sound. It is kind of snarl at the mid-range. There's a lot of bass, and it's still kind of tight. And I think the high end is pretty cutting, and in a good way. I think it sounds great for most use cases in metal, especially. I can't really say anything bad about it, but it does kind of feel the same as what I hear a lot of other tones. The first IR I'm going to look into is the Matchless with the M25, and I'm going to have the mic be a 421, and that's going to be mic'd center of the cone. Alright, so I think it's a lot darker sounding, and not in like a bad way or anything, but it's a lot more kind of low mid focus, and it actually has a lot more bass in than I expected, especially for a 212. Usually a 412 has just way more bass. I think the part that impresses me the most about this though is the fact that it just sounds really smooth up top, so you can do a lot of like really like almost effortless feeling runs above. So I think I like that a lot. And aside from that smoother high end, you actually get a lot of nice deep growls on the low end. And if you just play like a chord, like, it's just nice and textured on the bottom, and I really like that too. So that was the M25. Let's check out the H30. Same cabinet, just a different speaker. And also the same mic positioning and 421. So this one has a ton more mids and a ton more high end as well, and it's not quite as dark as the M25. and that's kind of to be expected from an H30 speaker. I think it's really cool because it adds a lot of cool mid-range growl. It feels like this speaker is all about that mid-range. It doesn't quite have the low end of the other two speakers that we've listened to, but it definitely punches like in the mid-range very, very, very well. And it has like a cool quality in the highs where it feels very percussive. So if you're playing like really percussive things, I think it actually works pretty well for that too. And what's nice is the high end is actually still not that like sharp, despite being as percussive as it is, which generally when you add more high end to get more of that percussive sound into your guitar amp tone, you kind of get shrill highs, and you don't really get that here. I think this is a really cool option if you want like a more tight sort of tone that also has a really decent mid-range punch. Yeah, it's actually really cool. The M25 IR seems to not have a lot of highs. I think over the V30s, I feel like I'd use that for leads over the V30s. For this one, it definitely has a ton of mid-range compared to the V30. Has a wider mid-range, I would say. So the last IR I want to go through is the Vox 212 with the Alnico Blues in them. And I think what's cool about this is that the power handling for kind of these speakers, they probably can't handle amps that are too loud. So you wouldn't usually get like a 100 watt amp into some Alnico Blues because the power handling is like 15 watts per speaker. But with the digital world, you can kind of do that. And what's kind of cool is Alnico Blue are kind of the predecessor to the V30, but they still have a different sound to them. V30s, if I remember correctly, were created in order to make a neodymium version of the Alnico Celestium Blues. And so this will be interesting because I think this actually sounds the most similar to the V30s. So yeah, I think that sounds amazing actually compared to the V30s. I was actually using the cap edge in this one compared to the center cone in the other ones because this is actually a much brighter cabinet. I do think that from all the demos I've heard, Alnico Blues are generally a bit brighter than the V30s in a slightly different way, but it can get kind of harsh for metal. However, if you find the right mic placement for it, I think it sounds great, and I think it sounds great here. I was actually surprised at how much kind of a wall of sound effect it has. It's not scooped necessarily, but it definitely has enough mid-range to not feel that way, and yet it still kind of fills the space more than I would imagine a 212 to usually do. Being so used to playing 412s, I always felt like 212s felt small, and yet I feel like these are pretty good. I think of all the speakers though, this one's probably the one with the most shrill highs. As I mentioned before, it does have a lot more highs in a different way, and I wouldn't use this as the lead tone primarily unless you have some kind of EQ to like basically cut out the highs a little bit. But overall, this has the aggression that I didn't expect from a Vox like cabinet. It is kind of cool using all of these non-metal speakers for metal. I know they're just IRs, but this is kind of a place where it's really cool to see what you can do with different types of gear. That's not just what you hear from everyone else. And again, I think that the Mesa V30 with the SM57 sounds good, but it's just, I hear it everywhere now. I'm so a little tired of it, and I don't think it sounds bad, I just am tired of it, if that makes any sense. Anyway, what do y'all think about these speakers? Let me know in the comments down below, and yeah, I hope that y'all enjoyed a little bit of a dive into some other IRs. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and liking, yeah, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Later.